So this is the 0620 hours GMT edition of the Khoodeelaar television channel, broadcasting under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo editions on Wednesday, the 7th of June 2023. And the main comments that we shall be making, of course, concerns the first day of the testimony in the quote High Court in London, given by Diana's son, Harry Windsor. And so far, the newspaper shop that the retail shop that I use to buy the day's newspapers, they only had the two Murdoch titles, The Scum and The Times. The Times is, of course, described most recently by Private Eye as being edited by a man called Tony Gallagher, who is a Tory fanboy, as they say. So therefore, their heading is not about the legal aspect. They are saying the Duke, that is Harry Windsor, launches political attack. So this is a clear diversion from the actual focus of the evidence. And what they're doing that for is in part, really mainly, to shield the evilness called Pierce Moron. The evilness Pierce Moron is being used as a tool by the dirty digger Rupert Murdoch, who owns the Times newspaper and this scum. And it is the evilness Pierce Moron that is the person that has been the focus of the attention in the allegations, claims, testimony by Harry and on his behalf by his lawyers. So Duke launches political attack is completely not the correct or accurate heading. That should be confined to some political sniping somewhere else in the paper. But being the Times, which is a degenerate title, it's not possible to expect the Times newspaper to refrain from making aggravated attacks on the credibility and the focus of Harry Windsor. Now, according to Tina Brown, who was married to Harold Evans, and Harold Evans was the one that was the editor of the Sunday Times in the period when the Sunday Times carried out the investigation into the Distillers Company, the drug company in the United Kingdom. And the Distillers Company was the one that was found to have been responsible for the illnesses. So let's check on the Distillers Company and the illnesses that it was found to have been responsible for. So the Distillers Company Limited was a leading Scottish drinks and pharmaceutical company, and at one time a constituent of the FTSE 100 index. It was taken over by Guinness and Company, now part of Diageo. And the Distillers Company was founded in 1877, and it was It went defunct in 1986, and the fate was it was acquired, and it was headquartered in Edinburgh, Scotland. And the products, under products, the entry on the distillers company, this entry that I'm checking on Wikipedia is listed just one Scotch whiskey. So why are they not talking about the real crime that the distillers company committed? So the from 1942, distillers biochemicals operated an agency factory of the British Ministry of Supply, manufacturing penicillin in Speke. The plant was one of the first two factories in Europe to produce penicillin. Following World War II, DCBL, that is the Distillers Biochemicals, purchased the factory for approximately $4 million. So, why are we not coming across the real criminal content in this entry, which is completely diversionary? So, it was thalidomide. Distiller's top man in Australia sat on McBride's shocking report for 5 months, leading in thousands of avoidable deaths and injuries. It was a thalidomide. So let's check on the thalidomide. Thalidomide changed our relationship with new medicines forever. It took 5 years for the connection between thalidomide taken by pregnant women and the impact on their children to be made. Not only did thalidomide change people's lives, but it resulted in tighter drug testing and reporting of side effects. And thalidomide briefly is described here as thalidomide is a drug that was developed in the 1950s by the West German pharmaceutical company Chemie Grunenthal GmbH. It was originally intended as a sedative or tranquilizer, but was soon used for treating a wide range of other conditions, including colds, flu, nausea, and morning sickness in pregnant women. During early testing, researchers at the company found that it was virtually impossible to give test animals a lethal dose of the drug based on the LD50 test. Largely based on these, the drug was deemed to be harmless to humans. Thalidomide was licensed in July 1956 for over the counter sale. No doctor's prescription was needed in Germany. Thalidomide in the marketplace around the world, more and more pharmaceutical companies started to produce and market the drug under license from Chemical Grunentha. By the mid 1950s, 14 pharmaceutical companies were marketing thalidomide in 46 countries under at least 37 different trade names. In 1958, thalidomide was produced in the United Kingdom by the Distillers Company. Now, there is the reference to the Distillers Company, Biochemicals Limited, under the brand names Distaval, Tansival, Valgrind, and Asmaval. Their advertisement claimed that Distaval can be given with complete safety. Notice this reassuring lie. The Distaval can be given with complete safety to pregnant women and nursing mothers without adverse effect on mother or child. Distaval thalidomide made by Chemi Grunenthal GmbH, British counterpart 1958-1962, and this picture of the tablets, Science Museum Group collection. The drug was prescribed for a range of conditions, including pneumonia, colds, and flu, and for relieving the symptom of nausea after often experienced in early pregnancy. So let's go down and see what they say about thalidomide. Okay, so this is what they're saying a few paragraphs down there. The first time the link between thalidomide and its impact on development was made public was in a letter published in the Lancet from an Australian doctor, William McBride, in 1961. So that's where the McBride connection comes. The drug was formally withdrawn by Chemical Grunenthal on 26th of November 1961, and a few days later, on 2nd of December 1961, the UK distributors followed suit. However, it remained in many medicine cabinets under many different names. Look at the serial lies, deception, deadly, murderous lies practiced by drug companies. In the few short years that thalidomide was available, it is estimated that over 10,000 babies were affected by the drug worldwide. Around half died within months of being born. So 5,000 babies, let's say, according to that statistic. The thalidomide babies were survived. The thalidomide babies who survived and the families live with the effects of the drug. That is to this day. The Thalidomide Society was formed in 1962 by the parents of children affected by the drug thalidomide. The original aim of the society was to provide mutual support and a social network as well as to seek compensation. In 1968, Chemi Grunenthal was brought to trial in Germany. The company settled the case out of court, and arrangements were made to compensate German victims. No one was found guilty of any crimes. Can you believe that? There was a massacre of thousands of babies. The same year, the British licensee, the Distillers Company, also reached a compensation settlement with the UK victims of the drug. In the UK, payments from distillers as well as the government compensation were administered by the Thalidomide Trust. In 1972, there is still no mention of the Sunday Times, but it's only here. In 1972, a highly publicized campaign led by the Sunday Times newspaper helped to secure a further settlement for the children affected by thalidomide in the UK. That is only in 1972. That's when Tina Brown's now deceased husband, Harry Evans, was the editor of the Sunday Times, and it was him who became known mainly for the campaign to help the victims of the thalidomide. Six parts, six pairs of prosthetic limbs made for Tracy Behrman, whose limb development was affected by thalidomide throughout her childhood and teenage years. There is a picture there. So let's go back to the main entry for Harry Evans. Remember, we're talking about Harry Windsor, the Duke of Edinburgh, and we're going back to the particular individual that has gone on the record, Tina Brown, praising Harry's, as she calls it, crusade against the newspapers. So let's say Harold Evans, his he died aged 92 in New York and was born in June 1928. And he and Tina Brown, the wife, by then his wife, because Tina Brown was not his first wife, he had previous, well, she was the second one according to this one. He has got five children. His first wife he married in 1953, whom he divorced in 1978. So that was a divorce that must have been carried out during his period of courting Tina Brown, who was much younger than him. Tina Brown was married in 1981. So he was born in Wales, and we shall. So he did the various bits of investigative journalism through the Sunday Times. This is the bit that we are interested in, and the thalidomide bit. The long-running issue during his tenure was thalidomide, a drug prescribed to expectant mothers suffering from morning sickness, which led to thousands of children in Britain having deformed limbs. They had not received compensation from the drug manufacturers, who in the United Kingdom were the distillers' company. He organized a campaign by the newspaper's Inside investigation team. So that's when the Sunday Times' team, Inside, became notable, appointing Philip Knightley to run the investigation. Evans took on the drug companies responsible for the manufacture of thalidomide, pursuing them through the English courts and eventually gaining victory in the European Court of Human Rights. Notice that. European Court of Human Rights, not an English court. In 1979, the British government was compelled to change the law on contempt of court, which had inhibited the reporting of civil cases. While it was legal for the newspaper to campaign, it was not possible for the journalist to report its factual basis. Can you believe that? After the ruling in the European court, the British media was now able to report such cases without restraint. The families of thalidomide victims eventually won compensation of 32.5 million as a consequence of Evans' Sunday Times campaign. A documentary about Evans and the thalidomide campaign, Attacking the Devil, Harold Evans and the Last Nazi War Crime, appeared in 2016. The British government attempted in 1974 to prevent Evans from publishing extracts from the diaries of former Labour cabinet minister Richard Crossman. Shortly after Crossman had died, and ahead of the diary's publication in book form, Evans risked prosecution under the Official Secrets Act 1911 for breaking the 30-year rule preventing disclosures of government business. Lord Chief Justice Wijari ruled that the publication would not be against the public interest. And there comes Murdoch, the evil one who takes over the Sunday Times. When Rupert Murdoch acquired Times Newspapers Limited in 1981, he appointed Evans as editor of the Times. He remained with the paper only a year, during which time Times was critical of Margaret Thatcher. Over 50 journalists resigned in the first 6 months of Murdoch's takeover, a number of them known to dislike Evans. In March 1982, a group of Times journalists called for Evans to resign, despite the paper's increase in circulation, claiming that he had overseen an erosion of editorial standards. Evans resigned shortly afterwards, citing policy differences with Murdoch relating to editorial independence. Evans included an account of the episode in his book, Good Times, Bad Times 1984. In the introduction to the 1994 edition, Evans wrote of Murdoch, when I come across him socially in New York, I find I am without any residual emotional hostility. I have to remind myself that Lucifer is the most arresting character in Milton's Paradise Lost. On leaving the Times, Evans became director of Gold Crest Films and Television. In 1984, Evans moved to the United States, where he taught at Duke University in North Carolina and Yale University. He was appointed editor in chief of the Atlantic Monthly Press and became editorial director of the United States News and World Report and worked for the New York Daily News. In 1986, he was the founding editor of Condé Nast Traveler, where, unlike other publications, the staff were barred from receiving any free travel or hospitality from the organization they wrote about. Evans was appointed president and publisher of Random House from 1990 to 97. The authors he edited included William Styron, Calvin Trillin, Neil Sheehan, Gail Sheehy, Edmund Morris, Shelby Foote, Maya Angelou, and Shana Alexandra. He acquired rights for £440,000 to the memoir Dreams from My Father by Barack Obama. Then, at first of his political career, Gail Sheehy described working with Evans and how he was known for his cryptic comments penciled on the manuscript. We know this. Evans was editorial director and vice chairman of the US News and World Report, etc., etc. So Evans became a naturalized US citizen in 1993. On 13th of June 2011, he became editor at large at Reuters. In 1953, Evans married fellow Durham graduate Enid Parker, with whom he had a son and two daughters. The marriage was dissolved in 1978. The couple remained on good terms. Enid Evans died in 2013. In 1973, Evans met Tina Brown. So that was 50 years ago now. A journalist 25 years his junior, as I say. In 1974, she was given freelance assignments with the Sunday Times in the UK and in the US by its Color magazine. We'll talk about the Color magazine another time. When a sexual affair emerged between the married Evans and Brown, she resigned and joined the rival, the Sunday Telegraph. On 20th August 1981, Evans and Brown married at Grey Gardens in East Hampton, New York, the home of Ben Bradley, then the Washington Post executive editor, and Sally Quinn. Evans and Brown had a son and daughter. Now, where is the fifth one then? Because the list says they got he has five children. So where is the fifth child? Evans died in New York City on 23rd of September 2020 at the age of 92. His death was reported by his family, and the cause of death was given as congestive heart failure. And there are there is a list of four separate honors. Received the Hood Medal of the Royal Photographic Society for photography in public service. Evans was known as a technical genius on photography, photojournalism. I particularly am fascinated by photojournalism because I'm a photojournalist myself. Named one of International Press Institute's 50 World Press Freedom Heroes of the past 50 years. That was in 2000. And 2004, he was appointed Knight Bachelor by Brenda, the Queen, for services to journalism. And in 2015, he received the Kresna Cross Foundation Outstanding Contribution to Publishing Award. Now, I've read all of this because I wanted to emphasize Tina Brown and her significance. Let's go back to a bit of the techni- technical things that I'm dealing with while I'm broadcasting. So, Tina Brown, therefore, has been associated for 50 years, now 50 years, for various aspects of high octane publishing and journalism with more than 50 years that has featured and has been led by Harold Evans. And so, therefore, when she said that Harry, the Windsor, Harry, the Duke of Sussex, is onto a good cause. Let's check what she actually has said on report. So Tina Brown Okay, so that is her general contextual references to Harry and so anyway, Tina Brown has supported Harry in his legal action, what she calls his crusade. Of course, the crusade is in the context of our campaign is the crusade that the Christians operate against the Muslims. But crusade is also used in a secondary sense as a serious war campaign. This is the sense in which I read Tina Brown's support for Harry's action. Now, let's go back to some other sources to find what Tina Brown has said. Why are the British fucking outlets not showing this particular comment that Tina Brown has made about the fucking newspapers? This is significant, isn't it? So I'm not going to spend any time looking for it while doing this broadcast, except to say that she has fully supported Harry's decision and action, and as her other comments are showing, she's very supportive and understanding of both Meghan and Harry. So let's leave that particular reference there and to go back to the coverage or cover up, the hiding. After the first day of his appearance in the London High Court, the main coverage or the reporting has been, to say the least, biased. In the Evening Standard, which is owned by the Two Beards, the son of a KGB man, the Two Beards is the phrase used by Private Lie against him. Now, on page 3 of the Evening Lying Standards, the heading is "How much blood before this ends?" Now, that suggests that Harry is on a war which is spilling blood. So, they are not at all taking the line that Harry is actually seeking accountability for the newspapers, especially in this context. So far at this stage, it is the list of allegations against the Mirror Group newspapers, which had in post as editor of the Daily Mirror for 9 years the notorious racist and hate monger Pierce Moron. Again, the phrase it coincidentally is the phrase that I have used, and I found later that the Private Lie was using as well. And I have got a record of coining names appropriate to the lack of character and lack of morality and ethics of the individual that I subject to this particular editorial. Now, what has happened is that even the Sky News that has reported so called Harry's appearance on Tuesday, which is yesterday, and The Guardian is less biased against Harry's testimony than Sky News. Now, the reason why Sky News is more biased against Harry, and the reason why the Times is running this political aspect, is because they know that Murdoch has installed the evilness, Pierce Moron, at a cost of millions and millions and millions of pounds. Now, what is the reason why Murdoch has given in to the kind of contraption? The one answer is that Murdoch is despite the fact that he's in his 90s, Murdoch remains sexually quite active. And by that I mean that he may have been kind of privately treated to a campaign created by Pierce Moron using his very sexy wife, Celia Walton. Although they did not use the racist anti Harry, anti Meghan Pierce Moron from the Good Morning Britain slot, Moron was really desperate to the point where, in a series of articles that Celia Walton wrote in the Telegraph, she openly pleaded. I mean, that was the extent of the desperation that Pierce Moron inflicted on Celia Walton. Celia Walden pleaded for help in somebody giving Piers Moron a platform. And I think that was the time when she was privately targeting Rupert Murdoch. One of the things that she said in one of her columns in the Telegraph was that when he was quoting her, that is, Piers Moron was quoting Celia Walden, and in a car journey that she recalled or referred to, the car being driven by Moron himself, Piers Moron could not concentrate on driving. Why? Celia Walden said because he was staring too much at her legs. That is the naked desperation that Piers Moron exposed himself to. And so, therefore, I'm saying that if that is possible or if that has been possible, and it has been possible for Celia Walden to say in public in a column in the Telegraph, then it is without any doubt also possible that she went even more, how shall I say, candid in her efforts to charm Rupert Murdoch, overwhelm him with her sexual attractions. Well, of course, we don't know the actual details of the extent to which that that campaign went. But suffice to say that Celia Walden overwhelmed Rupert Murdoch to the point where Murdoch invested nearly £100 million in creating an altogether new venture just to give Piers Moron a platform, talk television. And Piers Moron himself has been paid £50 million. Is it on a year basis or altogether? I cannot check that at this moment, but that is the amount that he has been paid by Dirty Digger Rupert Murdoch. So that is the extent to which Rupert Murdoch's newspapers and media outlets are going to protect Piers Moron from the very serious allegations being made by Harry against him. So when it says Duke launches political attack on the front page of the Times today, Wednesday, the 7th of June 2023, it shows what I'm saying, that it is a decision of the Murdoch to give open, brazen support to Piers Moron by undermining Harry. And then in the Sun, the scum, it says Harry's day in court, and it's in the splash, it says me, Hewitt, and that two-faced shit, Burrell. Duke tells of dad fears, and Blush dies aid and government. So these are not based on the actual evidence. The 50 pages of additional testimony that he has submitted in addition to the verbal testimony against the Mirror Group newspapers. Nor is there any reference to the fact that what he is doing, Harry that is, in the legal actions that he has started, is to hold these papers to account. because I have been examining I've been examining the British media even before Di, Harry's mother, was born. So I've been reading the papers from the 1950s. So more than 70 years in actual fact. And my understanding of the British press before my approach or appearance or kind of recognition receipt of the broadcasting versions is consistent with my moral, ethical finding, which is that the British press remains, despite the fact that they're talking about tabloids, I say that all these newspapers, including the Financial Times and the Times, even when the Times was being edited by Harold Evans, and the Sunday Times when Harold Evans was doing the campaigns over thalidomide, the essential general line of the British press has been corrupt, racist, and at the core founded on the superiority based on empire and Little England. So when Meghan Markle appeared on the scene, although pigmentationally, she is as white as the ordinary whites, but her mother is, of course, black, and her father, being biologically white, has not been helping because he has been part of the tools that the racist media in Free Street, the Scum and the Daily Mail, have been particularly focusing on using him and his other white daughter that he had with white mother, white wife, not not Doria Ragland, who is the mother of Meghan Markle. So Thomas Markle has been a crass racist white thug who has been recruited by the Scum, the Daily Mail, to lob regular grenades of hostility and hatred against Harry, and all of that is because of Meghan. The allegations that Harry has against the Daily Mirror and Mirror Group newspapers over the period when he had met Chelsea Davy and was seeing her are about the way that they went about gathering information about him and Chelsea Davy. And the privacy is the center of the allegations because they violated his privacy in a horrendous way so that he couldn't rest, he could not think that anything he was doing was not being spied on, invaded, etc. etc. So this is a very serious series of allegations, and he has got only 30 plus editions or stories in the Mirror Group newspapers. The attacks on Harry while he was seeing Chelsea Davy were not motivated by racism, but about the possibility of them getting money. And the attacks on Harry since he met Meghan Markle were, of course, contaminated, aggravated by racism. And although he is not, or he has not been involved with the Daily Mirror group, Piers Moron has had different platforms from which he has been throwing stones at Harry and Meghan. And the reason why Piers Moran has been throwing stones at Meghan and Harry is not about the attacks on the on Harry while the moron was editor of the Daily Mirror for 9 years until 2004 when he was summarily sacked. The attacks are as a kind of insurance in order to prevent Harry successfully suing the Mirror Group newspapers. If there is success, then it automatically means the total destruction of Piers Moron. So he's engaged in attacking Harry in advance of the attacks on him based on the evidence of his behavior by Harry. What Tina Brown's support for Harry's actions represents is not only because she has been with Harold Evans for more than 50 years, but also because among the complainants in the same series of actions against the Mirror Group newspapers and others are people like Elton John and by Hugh Grant, two of the most widely known, high profile British celebrities, both of whom are supported by considerable numbers of public, and especially in the case of Elton John, he is so far not tarnished by creepy allegations or allegations of creepy behavior. And because Elton John was a friend of Harry's mom, Diana, this is a significant factor in the working out of the balance. So, although the newspapers like the Times and the Scum and the Daily Mail today are hostile to Harry, Harry has got solid foundation on facts, and it is not possible to rule out the fact that Harry would have secured a significant landmark in the case. Because, as Sonia Soda said on the Sky News press preview in the last 12 hours, reviewing the papers today, she has accepted that Harry may have stumbled on the problems in appearing on the Monday when he was supposed to, or he's had a weak beginning because the judge hearing the case has made a comment already. She said that outcome probably is not what he has been after. It is the fact that all these allegations and grievances and claims against the papers have been aired. That is what may vindicate him, regardless of the outcome, regardless of any actual outcome in terms of holding the Mirror Group newspapers and others to account. We shall be continuing talking about this, of course, for the duration and beyond of the hearing, particular hearing that is or are going on at the moment. Now, we shall be talking about other issues, and this one is 56 minutes, just over 56 minutes. So we shall be putting an end to this one at 07:17 hours GMT on Wednesday, the 7th of June, 2023.